All right, everyone with us? Good, okay. So in this module, you will continue to develop your driving skills, develop your ability to give a commentary, and practice for your part one with the Driving Test Success online app. You will also be developing your ability to give guided instruction, completing exercise 4, qualified drivers, planning a lesson on crossroads, and you will be introduced to the goals for driver education. Now, if you remember, we started to have a look at guided instruction on in-car session 2, and we're carrying on with that thing. We do quite a lot on levels of instruction. So it's just got a bit of an explanation there about the 3 basic levels of instruction and an example of guided instruction. And then at the bottom of the page there, we've got the usual paragraph there about them planning the lessons and lesson plans. Okay, if we turn over the page, we have a lovely diagram there of the goals for driver education. Now, very, very quick outline. I'm not going to spend any time on this at all, really. But we can see there are 4 levels and 3 columns. If we have a look at level 1 and level 2, the vehicle and the road, traditionally, we only had a look at that bottom left 4 boxes. So that's column 1, column 2 of levels 1 and 2. That's where traditional driving instruction was. And that was enough to get people through their test. But they have now, through their consultations, realised that people don't have crashes because they don't know how to drive a car. They crash because of who they are. They crash because they're distracted by something else, which is why we now have to take in thoughts and feelings which motivate the behavior. And of course, that last column was never there, the self-evaluation. It was never there. It was just us giving feedback and saying, you did that right, you did that wrong, you need to do this to get better. All right, now that is the briefest outline that you're ever going to have of the GDE, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of what it's about. It does give you some explanations on there. Have a look at it. What are you doing your research? You can have this alongside you. Right, okay, turning over the page then. We have an outline of in-car session 3. Which we are obviously going to go into a lot of detail. And then turning over the page, we have exercise 4, qualified drivers. Now, this is really to help them to understand it's not just learner drivers they're going to be taking out and looking after. All right. And if they do get a qualified driver come to them, what are they going to do with them? All right. So have a quick look through there. Of course, spend a bit more time in your own time, but this is really just to give you, a sort of an idea of what we're asking them to do. So have a quick read through, and if anybody's got any questions, just fire away. Okay, hopefully we've got a bit of gist of that. Turning over the page, we've got the developed driving assessment and the DO25. Anybody go to the On Point last night?
Yeah.
You find it useful?
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, it was. It was really handy. I've got me print out of what have I gained and the self-reflection from that. So that was all good.
Brilliant. So
Yeah.
that should help you now with this driving marking sheet.
Yeah, no, it really did
For
help
health and
because of
market.
doing the mock tests. It really was good. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Jeanette, you want to say
Are,
something?
are these going to be repeated again? The 4
The On
on.
Points.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. You have to ask Sarah about that.
Hopefully, we have got a lot of topics that we want to get through, Jeanette, but I'm sure that we will revisit some of them that are popular, like mock testing, but we haven't got a date for those yet. We've got quite a lot of other topics that we've got to put up first.
That's fine. Good. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Watch his space, I think, is the answer to that.
Yeah.
I questioned. I missed it last night. I had to work.
Had you signed up for it, Sue?
Yeah, I'd paid for it and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, bless you.
Nick.
Hi. Can I just ask a quick question?
Of course.
The On Point last night, there was a presentation. Can we see that again? Is it downloadable?
We're working out what we're doing with that today. We've got a meeting this afternoon whereby we've got to look at the recording and decide exactly what we're doing with that. It may be that we can send that out to the people who have attended. It may be that we might send out the PowerPoint instead. Watch this space, Nick. I don't have the answers at the moment because this is the first one.
Okay.
This was our pilot. And we haven't finalised what we're doing or the method in which we're going forward with the recordings of these.
Okay.
So the 4 heads will come together this afternoon and we'll try and
Yeah.
work it out.
Okay.
4 heads, I like that.
Four
My
heads.
4-head will come.
4 heads. Brilliant. Good. Okay. So as I say, we've got the developed driving assessment, the DL25, and then we have finally the action plan, which we now know denotes the end of that module. Okay. Any questions from the PDI's point of view as to what we're expecting from them? Yes, Lisa.
Just a quick one with the action plan. So
Yes.
obviously they go back, so they fill it out throughout the course, and then when do we go back as the trainers and assess what they've put? Do we do that before we move on to the in-car session?
Okay, what I generally do, Lisa, is at the beginning of each session, a bit like you would do with reflective logs, because this is really what that is.
Yeah.
They should have been looking at that in between sessions. So we can ask them how they're getting on with it, what they've done, what they've put in place, whether they feel they've achieved it or where they're going to go with this now, and so on and so forth. It is their responsibility to develop what they need to develop.
Okay, so we just check in at the beginning of each session.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we're happy then to start on these guidance notes. Let's find the guidance notes in, please, for in-car session 3. Okay. Right, so have a look at these learning outcomes. By the end of the session, the trainee will know what needs developing in their driving, how to develop commissary driving skills, how to deliver guided instruction using Crossroads as a platform, and how to find suitable practice areas, more about how to build rapport and what to practice when they go home. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 learning outcomes excluding the last one, which is what they do with their action plans. How many of those are competencies, please, from the standards check marking sheet? How many are competencies? One, says Scott. One, says Jamie. Any advances on one?
Wow.
Based on your answer last time, Di, I would say them all.
All?
Based on your answer last time.
Well, no, actual competencies, yeah,
One.
One.
Good, okay. Can somebody please highlight that competency to me?
Scott,
Thank you.
Practice areas.
Practice areas, excellent, good.
Oh,
So-
sorry.
It was, oh, sorry, was
sorry,
it
it
me?
was Scott and Scott K. Sorry,
Oh, right,
Scott,
okay.
Scott,
Sorry, long as it was-
Scott without
Sorry.
the K was the one I meant. So
We're going to have to define that, aren't we, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Say bald Scott, then we
Yeah.
know when, don't we?
Bald Scott, that's a bit rude, Scott.
Scott with glasses and Scott without glasses might be easier. I don't think we go down the shiny Scott route, can we?
We're getting a bit personal now. So.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so it's how to find suitable practice areas. So we did the what with our first competency. We did the how in our second competency, and we're now looking at the where. All right. So we've done the what, we've done the how. This is the where. Right. So that is what we are going to be working through. So the first thing we need to do as a trainer is to have a look at those competencies, have a look at the guidance notes, have a look at the online material. We need to have a look and see which one of those learning outcomes is likely to take the longest. How much time do we need to spend on each of those each of those learning outcomes? So it gives us an idea as we're going through those 3.5 hours, how to actually allocate the time. So as I said, we only ever need to stay one step ahead of our PDI. We don't need to know the whole course. We just need to know what we're delivering on our next in-car session. Righto, so it says introduction. So the first thing we're going to do before we get them out in car or as a discussion in the car before we start doing any training, we need to discuss how they're getting on, refer to their action plans, have a look at the exercise that they've just done in their course book. There's nothing worse, is there? You know, I don't know about you. When I was at school, I wasn't very good at doing my homework. In fact, I was pretty rubbish at doing my homework, and I was always getting told off for not doing it. And on those very, very rare times that I did do my homework, it used to really hack me off if nobody wanted to see it. It used to hack me off. Yeah. So I think, you know, if they're putting the work in, then it's really our responsibility to take a bit of interest in that and make sure that they're happy with what they've done, and just have a quick look through it in case they're getting sidetracked somewhere and it's not quite what we're looking for. All right. Okay, right. So once that is out the way, we are then going to have another look at their driving. Now, at this stage, you may have noticed that at no time during this development of driving have we been looking at their maneuvers. We don't even start to look at their maneuvers until something like session 5 or even session 6. So we're just looking at their general driving at the moment, all right? Rural roads, urban roads. That's really what we're looking at and focusing on. So we're going to do a 1-hour drive with feedback and development. We're going to use the developed driving assessment sheet. And last time we were focusing on routines, weren't we? And this time we're going to focus on hazard perception. So we're going to have a look at their forward planning, their hazard perception, how they manage the risk, and also have a look at their eco driving. So can anybody give me a very quick or a couple of examples of what they would consider to be non-eco driving? Yes, Jeanette.
Not using the gears appropriately.
Okay, yep. So not being in the correct gear for the correct speed. Yeah. Andrew.
Slowing down and speeding up constantly rather than maintaining a nice speed.
Yep, lovely. Okay, thank you. Nick?
Having things on you don't need, like air conditioning, things like that, it's going to use more fuel.
Fabulous. Susan?
Not driving up to lights that are red really quickly and slamming the brakes on.
Excellent. Jamie?
No block changing when you're slowing down.
Yep.
Through the gears.
Excellent. Good. So we sort of call that accelerator sense, don't we? Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So harsh acceleration, harsh braking, being in the correct gear for the speed. Can you see how just by looking at eco driving, this is going to iron out a lot of their issues? Yeah. So this is why we don't look at faults. We're going to be looking at things which are going to improve their skill. And by improving their skill, the things that they were doing wrong will just melt away. All right. Good. Okay. Make your coaching and instructional techniques transparent. We're training them to become driving instructors. We're training them to do what we do. So if we use a particular coaching technique, maybe like eliciting feedback or active listening or adapting the lesson plan or anything like that, if we highlight that to them and say to them, how do you think that helped you when I changed the way we did that? We broke that down a little bit. Did you find that was really helpful? Could you see how you might be able to do this for your pupils? So what we're doing is, you know, we are demonstrating to them how the skills that we use help them in their training and how they can use the same skills in order to help their pupils. So all the time that we're training them, we're trying to make our training and our coaching transparent. Okay, that's basically what that means. All right, so if you'd just like to read the first two paragraphs there, actually, both the driving development and the commentary driving skills, because the commentary driving skills is really a continuation of what we have been doing on previous sessions. All right, it's just another continuation. So if you'd like to have a read through those. The commentary drive should be getting or becoming quite competent now. They've been practicing it in the in-car sessions. They should have been practicing it when they were away. We've also been focusing on guided instruction, which of course gives them that practice as well. So they should be getting close to what we're looking for, right? So it's just a matter of informally assessing. Okay, so just having a quick look at it. Don't forget, after each of these learning outcomes, you need to go back to those action plans to give them time to reflect. All right, so don't forget that. All right, anybody got any questions so far? It's fairly straightforward here. Good, okay. Right, so we're now going to have a look then at how to deliver guided instruction using Crossroads as a platform. So last time, if you remember, we were looking at pedestrian crossings, and we were asking them to talk us through pedestrian crossings. We're now going to do a very similar thing with Crossroads. All right, same sort of thing, different platform. All right. So we're going to discuss again, because it does follow on from commentary. So we're going to discuss with them how giving a commentary is useful for instruction. Just a reminder. Discuss the levels of instruction of instruct, alert, no inform. Okay, here's a good question for you then. If you instruct, so normally you have alert, inform, instruct, don't you? Yes, everyone recognize that? Alert, inform, instruct, which is guided instruction. So if you were to alert and instruct without inform, where might you use that? When might you use that on a driving lesson? Alert, instruct. Yes, Jeanette.
If it's safety critical.
Risk management, isn't it? Yeah. We don't have time to inform. We might inform later on. Yeah. So if somebody, is about to take a left-hand turn major to minor in fourth gear at 30 miles an hour, you haven't got time to inform. Yeah. So you just say, brake, second gear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's when you might come in a slightly different way. So we need to have a look at their lesson plan, just again, not in too much depth, just to make sure the salient points are there, all the key learning points are there. We don't want a briefing even at this stage, because that comes under a different competency that we're going to look at later on. And then we are looking for guided instruction through Crossroads. Keep it basic initially. If they are pretty competent at it, if they're all right at it, and if you've got time, then by all means have a look at offside, near side, light controlled, and so on and so forth. But just trying to match it to their ability, if you like. All right, so if you'd like to have a read through that, then please. Up to how to find suitable practice areas. Okay, everyone read that? Any questions? So we're not putting faults in, we're not doing anything like that. We are training them how to give guided instruction and give them as much help as they need. Okay, it's our job to help them to succeed, isn't it? All right. Good. Give them time to reflect on the exercise and to write down what they need to do to develop. And then we're going to have a look at this competency of this in-class session. How to find suitable practice areas. Okay, first of all then, let's have a look and see what it says in the guidance notes. And then we're going to have a bit of a discussion about this, all right, because I think this is quite important. So it said it's important that the trainee is learning about suitable practice areas and how to identify these. Discuss the area you've just been driving around and its suitability for crossroads. Ask them how they would go about identifying suitable practice areas. Have a look at Google Maps, for example. Suggest they make notes of areas in their ticket coursebook so that they can build up a range of roads that could be logged against the various topics they are covering. Lesson plans need to include notes about suitable practice areas. Now, as driving instructors, we know it's not just a matter of finding an area where you can do a particular subject. Suitable training areas are really important in order for a lesson to become successful. So we're going to pop you into breakout rooms. And what I want are two lists, really. The first list is what makes a good practice area. What makes a good practice area? And the second list is what could possibly go wrong if an incorrect practice area is chosen. So what makes a great practice area and what could go wrong if the wrong practice area is chosen? All right.
How long would you like, Di?
I think we can be generous this morning, Sarah, because we've got plenty of time. I think we give them 15 minutes.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, so you can have a good old chat about it. So what makes a good area and what doesn't make quite such a good area?
See you all in 15.
Good morning.
Hello again.
Morning all.
Good
How
morning.
you doing?
All good. How are you?
Yeah, fine. Nice bright day up here or down here, depending on where you are. Kind of in the middle, probably at Carlisle.
I'm in the Midlands, so
And it's Inverness.
I'm up north, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm kind of right in the middle then.
We normally say up for north.
Yeah, you're up north.
Yeah.
You're down south to me. Good.
Right then.
Yeah.
What makes a good practice area, guys?
What makes a good practice area?
Okay. On topic, I suppose. If you're doing crossroads, you want crossroads. If you're doing traffic lights, you want traffic lights.
Well, yeah, so it needs to have the relevant junctions, I suppose.
Yeah.
So
appropriate to the
relevant to topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also I think the type of area or the level of traffic needs to match the student's ability to not overwhelm or
yeah,
even so that it's not too easy. So
not so they're not bored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it needs to be adaptable as well. So that if they do well, we can move on to multi-lane crossroads. And if they don't do so well, you can go back to quiet.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably also important to be able to loop back around.
Yeah, loop and repeat, yeah. Places to pull up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah, places to pull up.
Sometimes the time of day comes into it for me, but I don't know if that affects the practice area, because if it's 5 o'clock, the local industrial estate's mental because everyone's going home.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
But if it's 6:30, it's fine. So the time of day affects whether it's a good one or not as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think that comes down to almost like the level of traffic, isn't it?
Yeah. Like 3:30 where I live, it's a very quiet estate, but there's a school in it, so you don't want to be here at 3:30 if you've got somebody brand new.
Yeah. What about the ability to kind of increase the level of difficulty? And I know you mentioned adapting the lesson plan, obviously making it easier if they're struggling, also to make it more difficult if they're doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the repetition is really important because it doesn't need to be exactly the same area you do, but it needs to have, if it's crossroads, you need to have ones where there's lights, where there's yellow boxes, where there's, depending on whether you're just introducing it or whether you're somebody that's more advanced, like you say. So.
Okay, where are we on the time? I've only used 4 minutes.
Possibly how close it is to where you're picking your pupil up, I suppose.
Yeah.
Proximity. You don't have to drive for hours to get to it. I suppose one of the other things is what you need to drive through to get to it. So if it was the first time somebody was doing crossroads and you've got to go through like a motorway junction to get to it, it's not ideal if they've only the first time they're doing a simple crossroad. So yeah.
That could be quite restrictive, though. What I tend to do is I don't take them into any kind of crazy roads, but if there's, for example, a need to go through roundabouts, and we've not covered roundabouts yet, I'll just say something like, we're going to come across a couple of roundabouts, but I'm going to guide you through, and I can even take control of the controls as we're managing those areas, so they don't become overwhelmed by the roundabout, and then we can just kind of crack on and get to wherever we need to get to. Because sometimes avoiding roundabout stuff, it takes you forever.
Yeah, it's not. It's sometimes you can't avoid something difficult, like you say, and you just have to help them more.
Yeah.
As long as they're aware of it.
Yeah.
It depends who it is, because sometimes it's better not to tell them because they just worry about it. If you just take them, they don't even notice sometimes. Depends on the person.
Yeah.
Some people will say to me, "Don't tell me, just take me." And all right, okay.
Yeah. The experience I've had is like as soon as you tell them that a roundabout, even while you're just sat there telling them we might go through a roundabout, they're like,
yeah, the panic sets in.
Yeah. Okay, so location. Anything else?
The route, so you said like the route to practice, proximity to student.
I wonder if it would be good to drive round the route first before you introduce the pupil to it if they're not familiar with that area, like you would do the driving.
I was just about to say that. How familiar the roads are to the student.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if they're not familiar with the area, then I do that sometimes. I do like a little loop. So that's actually a good point.
Yeah. So the process, how have we done? We've done 8 minutes, so we're kind of half. Is that 8? I can't see. Is that 6 and 8?
8 minutes.
8. So the other one is what goes wrong if the practice area is poor.
What could go wrong? Okay.
Lots of things.
You could die.
Yeah. For instance, if they end up on the motorway on their second lesson.
Yeah, I mean, if the situation is overwhelming, they could freeze, couldn't they? They could freeze up.
Yeah.
The death or accident are the worst possibilities.
Could freeze up or panic.
Yeah.
They could be bored if it's too simple.
Yeah. Bored. They could not be
Disengaged,
confident. Yeah.
demotivated. I suppose that's, if it doesn't have, if it's not on topic, then they're not going to be able to achieve their goal.
You know, a student may not be happy that they're having to. I mean, if they're not able to drive through the areas, and if you're having to drive for them, they may feel.
Yeah, yeah, like they're not learning anything.
Yeah.
So that's if you have to drive for them, isn't it?
Yeah, if you have to sort of say, "Oh, I'm going to go for a driving lesson, but I'm going to drive you there," because basically you're not capable of it. That's not the best, is it?
Yeah.
It's all right first 2 or 3 lessons, but after that, it's, you know.
Oh, well, I've got a student, and she was with another instructor previously, and what this instructor would do is, if they were running out of time, the instructor would say, "Look, I'll drive back because I'll be able to get us back a bit sooner." So she'd use their lesson time to get them back because of her poor time management. I was like, that is absolutely terrible.
No, that's not great. No. The only time I've ever done that is when I've turned up for a driving test at one place, and when I arrived, they told me they had cancelled it but moved it to the other test centre. Which was 10 minutes drive away, and I've said, I'll drive because, one, you're going to be thinking, oh my God, I've got less time to get ready for my test and go to the loo and have a cigarette.
Yeah.
So that's the only time I've stepped in and said, I'll take you.
Sometimes you have to, but it's like.
But that's the only time, really.
But the funny thing was, she was telling me that while we were in the same car park as that instructor, and it seemed like she had just done that with another student who she was with. They drove in as normal, but she drove out. I was like, what are you doing? Yeah, so they could feel like their money's wasted if you have to drive for them. They may feel like they're
not getting value for money. Not value.
Yeah.
And likewise, if it's too easy, then they're not being challenged. I think that's quite a lot, really. I think.
Yes.
I mean, they could even get disengaged if it's too difficult as well.
Yeah.
You know, if it's overwhelming.
Yeah, because if it could be overwhelming, you do sometimes switch off. Start to make more mistakes. You end up having to move away from your goal because you've got to deal with something else.
Yeah, and as a result, they could lose confidence in their abilities, and then that will then have a knock-on effect going into lessons afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't, if suddenly they keep forgetting to signal because they can't cope with the stress, then you're kind of like not really achieving what you're setting out to do.
Yeah.
Lose focus. It's quite important to have the right place, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you use Google Maps a lot, or do you just know your area so well now that you kind of just know where you need to go?
Yeah, I know my area fairly well, so I just tend to just use it from memory. But
Yeah.
possibly you could prompt if someone if someone wasn't familiar with it, you would maybe point them towards Google Maps or maybe some diagrams that you have.
I mean, I find local instructors, the ones which have already been around for a bit, they know what to do where. I mean, in my particular area, I mean, I'm born and bred here, and plus, I think when I was about 18 or 19, I did deliveries, a delivery job for Domino's. So I know
You know a lot of not of residential areas then.
Yeah, and I had plenty of pizza as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, very familiar with my area, which is nice 'cause it's a small town. I
And
suppose
you
it'd
should
be,
learn, like where there's good hills and where there's tight corners and things like that.
Yeah, you know,
Good
all
places to do parallel parks and not such good places, things like that.
yeah, we've got this. It's a really small town. We've got names for the potholes as well. So
Yeah, you can imagine.
But I mean, Derby's not far. When I first started, I actually did a bit of work in Derby. It was challenging there because it was a completely unfamiliar place. But yeah, I think local instructors are probably the best source of information if you're unfamiliar with the area.
Yeah. I find that I've lived in Carlisle for 5 years, but I lived for 14 years. I was only just up the road and I was into Carlisle all the time anyway, so I know it pretty well. But from when I started instructing, I did drive around a lot to like different sort of housing estates that I didn't really frequent, just to get used to which ones were dead ends and which ones had good hills, and which you may look at Google Maps, but until you physically go, and then you realise actually it's only that wide and it looks. It helps Google Maps, but sometimes
it's the time of the day. The same road can be very different at you know in the morning and in the afternoon. So you've got to be there and experience. Sometimes you got to just learn through trial and error. You take a student there and it's like maybe we shouldn't have come here at this time. But
the other week I had a girl who had a few lessons and she's really good, clutch control and everything like that, but for some stupid reason I took her a route and ended up being by a primary school at chucking out time. And there was like the bus and there was like 4x4s on the pavement and she had to go into a junction and she did it beautifully, so she actually enjoyed it, but it was a little bit busier than I had expected. I didn't tell her that, she just took it on the chin and quite enjoyed it in the end.
I mean, it was probably about right for her level of driving ability.
Yeah, it was quite a big step on for her, but she coped.
I think we're about to be kicked out of the second.
Yeah. Oh, who's talking, by the way?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Oh, we still got 4 seconds.
Oh well.
Yeah, I'll do it, guys. I'll do it.
Jeanette made it back first, and she's got the furthest to travel all the way to Tenerife.
3,000 miles.
That?
As long as they've got good bloody internet in Tenerife.
Oh, and Leon has stopped flashing at us, so that's
nice.
nice.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
It was a bit disturbing when he was flashing earlier.
I had disclaimers pop into my head when Jeanette just said that.
Okay, let's work through these rooms. In room 1, we had John, Nick, Penny, and Sue. So what did you come up with for practice areas?
What makes a good practice area?
Okay, so a good practice area is one that isn't too overwhelming, one that isn't too busy. Also, if other learners are learning in that area, then they feel like they're on a level. They're not in a massively stressed environment. Usually those areas have got wider roads, so they've got more room for any of their driving to have a bit of extra room, and we can pull them over and we can wait a little bit longer at a junction, and it's not going to hold people up. It's not going to cause big problems. and we don't want them to be stressed, because otherwise that can cause effects after their driving test while they're on the road as well. I was saying to the guys that I've got somebody full license holder at the moment. He said gets so stressed about the people behind him after I've taken him out a few times. He's so stressed about everyone who's behind him. He's ending up braking late, accelerating quickly, and his black box won't insure him anymore because they think he's a boy racer. He's not. He's just stressed. So
yeah, interesting.
Letting them learn at their own speed.
Yeah. So again, that's a really good example, isn't it, of how feelings motivate behaviour.
Yeah.
Really good example.
So what happens if you choose the wrong practice area, Nick? What did your group come up with?
If you choose the wrong practice area, it can bring in the feelings of being overwhelmed, and it can end up having that you can feel stressed and overwhelmed because of other drivers. You can feel vulnerable because it's more there's more people around, it's busy, and you can't learn all of those different skills in a methodical way. You're having to learn them all at once, and it's too stressful and worrying and frightening because they don't know how to deal with it.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Thank you.
Room 2, we've got Jamie, Jeanette, Leon and Susie.
I'm doing the...
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you.
Couple of things pretty similar to what Nick just said. But we've got round the block, so an area that is repeatable. So
Right.
Somewhere that when it goes wrong, you can go straight back and address it.
Excellent.
Hopefully not too busy. That was one. The time of day can matter as well. If you're going through a crossroads at like 3 o'clock when the school's coming out, not the best. So time of day has an impact on it. Hopefully somewhere that you can pull up to discuss. I can't even read my writing on that one. A suitable level of driving. I don't know what that means. I don't know why I've put that. So able to make mistakes. So if they are able to make mistakes, then you can go back and discuss and correct them. And they can achieve their goals if it's a good practice area.
Okay, and if it isn't a good practice area?
It could disrupt their confidence, put them back to square one again. It will overwhelm them. Learning may not take place. And also there's increased risk, with if the area is a bad area. And also one of the most important ones probably on their part 3 is they could run out of time if they've not done their research on the area.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Okay, thank you, Susie.
Room 3, Andrew, Lisa, Scott and Scott.
I'll go. Basically, we come up with similar things to all the other groups there as well.
Mm-hmm.
We first started talking about being able to adapt the lessons, so choosing a suitable area where if they're advancing too quickly or not enough, or other kind of development issues are coming in, then you can adapt that lesson plan. Considering whether there are open and closed junctions in the area, which kind of tie into previous lessons when you're doing junctions, I guess. Appropriate traffic levels. So are you taking them to a crossroads area where there's a lot of parked cars, then you might find yourself more in a meeting situations lesson rather than crossroads. But at the same time, we were also talking about when it comes down to suitable lessons, sometimes it's challenging depending on where you live. So like some of us were talking about, if I have students in Glenrothes where I live, there aren't any crossroads or even major crossroads. It's all roundabouts. So you have to drive 7 to 8 miles away. where I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, said that they've got to drive maybe 30 minutes to find crossroads areas. So that can be a challenge too. But you got to build that in and take that into consideration, I guess, and that would come into time management possibly. What else have we got? Being able to pull up multiple locations. So if you need to have a chat, that's take that into consideration. Here's appropriate roads for topic. Suitable for level instruction. Consider are the development areas. Yeah, I just said that. Yep. So that's kind of all
Okay.
on top of everything else that everybody else.
So what if the area isn't suitable, Scott? Did you get as far as that?
Yep. So we were talking about that could potentially overwhelm the learner. I think it was it Nick there was talking about increasing risk, or you could lose rapport with the learner and then find yourself in a situation where they're not willing or able to take on the knowledge that you're teaching. It will knock their confidence. And in the same regard, if the area is not suitable, it's too advanced for them, then if risk management comes into play and there's dangerous faults, that in turn could also knock the confidence too. And then they're not able to develop the skills any further.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Room 4, we've got Michael, Susan and Z.
I'll take it, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so we had a discussion. We said initially it needs to be relevant to the topic. So there's no point taking them to an area where you can't actually cover the topic that you actually want to be covering for that particular lesson. Level of traffic needs to be in line with the student's ability. The ability to loop around and also to pull in to be able to do sort of reflection. Taking into consideration traveling time, so that you're not having to go too far to get to the area that you want to get to. And also linking into that, it's sort of making sure that you're aware of the areas that you have to go through in order to get to the training area. So you might have to go through quite a challenging area, which then you may feel like you should drive, and then that can also bring problems, which we'll discuss in a sec. Also, something to bear in mind is how familiar the student is with the area. So that if they're familiar with the area, they might actually be more comfortable driving in that particular place. What could go wrong? The student could freeze or panic, which I think a couple of other people mentioned that increases the risk of something going wrong. Student may become disengaged if it's too difficult or if it's too easy. They could feel like the money's wasted if you have to drive for them. They feel like they made no progress if it's too easy. They could lose confidence and they could potentially lose focus. Just on the point of, I think I missed one for the first bit. The ability to be able to adapt the lesson if it's too difficult, being able to make it easier, or if they're advancing much faster, then the ability to be able to kind of make it a little bit more difficult. That's also useful. Not always possible, but useful. And that was us.
Excellent. Nice. I like that. And I like the fact that your group, although others have probably discussed it in their group, but the fact that you've come up there with that it can be as much of a problem finding a practice area that is too simple for the standard of student as it is if it's too difficult, with pupils becoming disheartened or feeling that they're not progressing. I like that. Yeah. So how many of you take these things into consideration on your everyday lessons when you are planning a lesson? Are these thoughts that go through your head every lesson, some lessons, no lessons? What do you think?
I mean, I would say that I do consider most of these things, but after having discussed, there's things which I hadn't really thought of, which I think I probably will now. But yeah, the things that could go wrong, you were aware of it without really consciously thinking about it too much. So yeah, something to think about.
Cool. Jeanette?
I think you've got to do it, because the pupil's just not going to go forward. But then you've got to think about somebody who's maybe I had a girl who couldn't roll out the roundabout, had a major problem. She kept stopping. So because of the area I was in, we were able to just adapt, and we went back to junctions. We tried to roll out of junctions, but all of a sudden she couldn't do that either. So beside the junctions is a nice straight road. So we went back to the straight road, and we actually did rolling through a non-junction at a lamp post. So every time we came to the lamp post, it became a non-junction, but we had to slow down, and we checked right and left. We were going straight on, obviously, because there was no junction. And then we were able to, work her through actually rolling through the non-junction, back to junctions, and eventually back to the roundabout.
And what do we call this, Jeanette?
Adapting the lesson.
To achieve the goal. The goal was still the same, but you adapted the lesson so that she could achieve that goal.
Yeah. So you're just chunking
Exactly
it.
right. Spot on. Love
Thank
it.
you.
Great. I think you really thought about that. There's some really good points, but just to summarize, really, it's got to be an area where the pupil can practice achieving the goal. There's no opportunities for them to actually practice achieving the goal, then what are you doing there, really? It should be a short, repeatable route.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to drive miles on a driving lesson. It doesn't matter if they do the same junction 10 times, because it's the achieving the goal that is important. I think we have to be careful about taking them always to Learnerland. The area should fit the ability of the student.
Mm-hmm.
And you should have that flexibility of making it easier, as Jeanette said, or indeed making it a little bit more challenging without having to travel too far. So we've got to think about what surrounds the area that we've chosen. We need to think about the risk, as a lot of you have mentioned. You don't either want your pupil or you to be firefighting risk if they're focusing on a particular goal, because then you've always got the risk, you've always got the risk of losing the goal, haven't you? If either you allow something to happen, which is potentially dangerous, then you may have to consider changing the lesson plan. Well, you don't want to do that. Obviously you should try to avoid that in the first place, but if you are being overwhelmed yourself because there is so much risk going on, then you might miss something, and it might develop into a safety critical situation, and then you have to deal with it, and you don't want that happening. So there's an awful lot of things that you need to think about rather than just taking somewhere that they can go and practice something. There's an awful lot of things that you need to sort of think about outside of that. So I'm going to read to you what it says in the Driving Instructor's Handbook regarding practice areas. It says, use an area or route that allows the pupil to practice safely and helps them to achieve their goals. Ideally, it should provide some stretch and challenge, but without taking the pupil out of their comfort zone. The route should include a range of opportunities to address the agreed learning objectives and challenges, but should be realistic in terms of the pupil's capabilities and confidence. Avoid using routes that take the pupil outside of their competence zone so that they spend all their time surviving and have no space left to look at the learning issues or exposing the pupil to risks they cannot manage. All right. So basically, well done, guys, because I think
absolutely
most of those points. That was a really good exercise, and hopefully you learned something from it as well. Yes, sir.
And the key to this is making sure that your goal is a SMART goal before you set that practice area. so that you know exactly what you and your student are working on, so that you can then choose the suitable practice area for them to achieve that goal.
You know, this is the what and the how, isn't it?
Mm.
You know, once you know the what and the how, then you can choose where. But if you haven't got a clear picture of what the what and the how is, how can you choose the right area for it? So this is why this is all comes under lesson planning. Yeah, but it doesn't stop after that conversation, does it? That's just the plan. You know, if the plan needs to be adapted, or if you need to, you know, tweak it a little bit, you have to. It is an ongoing process, isn't it? Good, well done. So, any questions about practice areas? Are we all a little clearer, a little happier? We all know what we're talking about, yeah? Yeah, good. We like that. Lovely.
I've never seen so many happy faces. Look at them.
If you're happy, I'm happy.
Yeah, they're happy.
Good. Okay. So back to those action plans. All right, because now they will have a better idea of what to look for when they are looking for practice areas. Right. And then we're going to move into the last learning outcome of this session. And that is more about how to build rapport. So in session 2, we looked at the skills of building client-centered rapport. We had a look at the difference between instructor-led and client-centered rapport. And we had a bit of a practice of that with our PDI. We're now going to have a look at it in a little bit more depth. So I think we also discussed, you know, how easy it is to break rapport. And somebody mentioned it today about practice areas, and I think that's a really good point. A really good point, because it is easy, isn't it? It's really easy, unknowingly, to break rapport with our students. And it's unintentional. Sometimes we're not even aware of it, and then we say something to them, and they're acting a bit weird. You think, oh, hang on a minute, what's going on here? I used to be awful when I first started to instruct. Well, I can't even say that, you know, because that's a bit of a cop out. When I was an old type instructor, my pupils quite often, I say quite often because it was quite often, and it's not because, you know, it was totally unintentional, but I had no idea that they were upset until they burst into tears. I was absolutely rubbish. And I look at them
horrified.
Horrified. I said, what are you crying for? I had no idea, you know, because I had instructor-led rapport. I didn't know what this client-centered rapport was. Thankfully, I'm a lot better now. But I look back on those days and I say, really, Di, what were you doing? What were you doing? Okay, so this is more about how to build rapport. So let's just read what it says here just for a moment. So it says, reinforce our understanding about the importance of establishing rapport and being non-judgmental. And that if rapport is broken, the pupil will not be in a position to learn. Discuss personal boundaries, swearing, racism, sexism, religious views. Aim to be as open and honest as possible. Ask if there is anything they particularly hate or dislike about people. How will they feel if someone like this is learning to drive with them? Is there a difference between a business relationship and a friendship, or a relationship between a parent and a child? Now that is really interesting, isn't it? Has anybody got any observations about that sentence? Is there a difference between a business relationship and a friendship, or the relationship between a parent and a child? And is this what we are looking for? Either of those, or are we looking for something else? Yes, Nick.
We're looking for something a bit different, because a business relationship I've had plenty of them, and they can be quite fraught, and it's all on and it's all sort of like a bit showy. You've got to hide everything that you feel. And you know, everything's just got to be all right on the night. Woe betide your feelings. Your parents are unconditional, so you know they're not going to be a problem. A friendship, well, a friendship is a friendship. We're not going to tell them, or we're not going to jump in too often. We're going to talk to them a different way. But when we're teaching someone, a bit different.
Okay, thank you. Nick, Lisa.
I think with some of those relationships, you've already got the rapport that's been built. Whereas obviously with a business relationship, you have to start that rapport. And I think that's the difference between them. So like I've taught my wife to drive, and that was a much different experience than teaching a student, a learner that I didn't know. And I've taught friends. So I do think you have to be careful that it's almost giving instruction and guidance to somebody that you know that they don't feel like you're condescending and things like that, because they take it a lot more personal.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a very good point, Lisa. Yeah, I mean, how many teenagers actually tell their mum and dad what they're doing? You know, how many parents listen to their kids and listen to their opinion? Scott?
Just quickly, I had a new pupil the other day, and he told me that he was in a car crash with his mate. His mate was driving, but he was in a car crash, and he said, first thing he said, "Don't tell my parents because they don't know." You know, so I just wanted to add that to there.
There you go. So we don't want that sort of relationship, do we?
No.
We don't want the business relationship that Nick was talking about there, because you're absolutely right, Nick. You know, quite often it's a closed shop, isn't it? You it's very surface when it's business. You know, you talk about business and you can't show weaknesses. You just have to be in that business head. You can't be a friend to these people because then they tend to take it too far. Yeah. So we can't have that sort of relationship. So we need something which sort of incorporates everything, don't we? We are running a business. They are our customers. So we have to have that customer support. We don't want to be the parent, so we don't want to be in that hierarchical position as a parent. We do want to listen. We do want them to feel like they're valued and what they have to say is valued. So we don't want to be the parent. We don't want to be telling them what to do all the time, like a parent. But, you know, the difference between a parent with, for instance, a 5-year-old child that is about to step off the pavement in front of a car would be, our response to that would be far different to going out at night with our friends and our friend was to step out in the middle of the road. You know, the child, we pull them back and we say, and we give them the explanation of why they can't do that. And with a friend, we might just stick our arm out in front of them and say, "What are you doing, you idiot?" Yeah. So it's a completely different relationship, but we need all of it. We need little bits of all of it rather than one or the other. And, you know, this is why rapport is very, you know, it's very flexible, and we have to be very careful with it because it can easily be lost, because unknowing to us, we've shifted over into that parent, or we've shifted more into the business, or we've become too much of a friend.
Exactly. I mean, one of the problems that you find with friendship style relationships in car is that you end up oversharing yourself. You start to talk about things that are important to you, or what happened to you, or, "Oh, you'll never guess what my friend said the other day," or "You'll never guess what my other pupil did the other day." Yeah, they're not there for that. They're not there for that kind of relationship at all. The relationship that you have with them has to be about them. they have to be the center of your relationship with them. And it is, as Di said, it is a business relationship. Yes, you can be friendly, but they're not your friend. Yeah. Yes, you can be have that same closeness as a parental, you really do care for this student. You really do care when they go on their test that, that they're going to get through and pass and all of that, but without being hierarchical. And you do want to have a business relationship with them because they are your customer, but you don't want to have bad business feeling where you've got that brick wall between you and your customer in terms of having that I'm just providing a service, you do as you're told, and if you don't like it, go somewhere else. You don't want those kind of relationships. So as Di says, it is about bringing the best of those kind of relationships in that equal, non-judgmental manner with your customers, making them the focus of that driving session. Di.
Okay, and the other question that's being asked there, is if there is something that they particularly hate or dislike, how are they going to feel if somebody comes to learn to drive for them who's like that, who has those opinions? How are they going to deal with that in order to maintain rapport? How do you deal with it, guys? You must have people get in the car that you think, oh, I don't know if I agree with that, or I don't like that opinion, or I don't like what you said about that person. How do you deal with it?
Sometimes have that. I've had a few with the police who've in certain areas who don't go on the police, shall we say, call them certain names. At the end of the day, I just reel them in, just say, I understand that's how you feel about them, but let's keep this professional in the car. We've got to deal with them. So I don't get into the conflict with it, because at the end of the day, that's their opinion. But for whatever reason, I just sort of try and keep it on a level playing field and just say, I'd rather we didn't have that conversation in the car.
Yeah. Okay. Has anybody? Sorry.
I think it's important maybe to explore their opinion, perhaps a little bit.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah, just because it's that hereditary. Is it brought? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Hereditary opinion. It could be their parents' opinion, but it might not necessarily be the correct one. But it's interesting to explore their opinion on things, isn't it? Because there's a reason for it. But if you just maybe say, shake it off or whatever, you don't know how that's going to affect them in the future, do you?
Exactly. Exactly.
So I think it's important to explore it.
Yeah. Scott Kay, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I've had students as well, and I do address it myself, but I always link it into the behaviours and how it will affect the driving. Because sometimes, about them getting upset and, linking back into the opposite of eco-safe driving, they do tend to get a little bit aggressive when they start getting angry at certain situations. So, yeah. I think it is important to, as Scott without the K says, I think it is important to challenge, these opinions, these beliefs, without losing rapport. So it's not saying, well, I don't agree with you, or
you're wrong.
You're wrong. You shouldn't say things like that, because that's going to break the rapport straight away, and it's not going to do any good. Have any of you heard of the acronym FOG? FOG.
You'll love this.
Oh, hey.
You'll use this forever.
Where have you been? So if you're challenging a belief or an opinion, we need to ask questions, like Scott says. We need to investigate it. And we start with, is it fact? Yeah. The second one is it opinion? And if it's opinion, where did that come from? And finally, is it a guess? So is it fact? So what evidence have I got that what they're saying is true? Is it opinion, and where have they got that from? Or is it just something that they've just come out with, a guess? So this is how we challenge beliefs and opinions.
And help them to challenge their own beliefs and
Raises their awareness. That's what we're trying to do. It just raises their awareness. And then you might follow that up with an exercise. You know, if it's, say, for example, it's a white van driver, yeah? And they say, bloody white van drivers, they're always up my back end. They're always rushing around doing everything. Yeah. So you pull over, you have a conversation like we've just discussed, and we say, right. So your quest now for the next 5 minutes is we're going to drive around the town centre, and I want you to point out every piece of positive driving you see a white van man doing.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah, because it just switches it. And as you said, Scott, you know, a lot of these opinions come from their parents, watching their parents. They've been watching their parents drive since they were 5 years old. You know, if dad says bloody women drivers shouldn't be on the road, yeah, learner drivers always holding me up. Yeah. BMW drivers. We've heard them all, haven't we? Yeah. And this is the time to pull over, just have a conversation with them, because this is the time to do it before it develops into something else, which might then turn into road rage.
Yeah.
And it helps your students, because those students are, when they're making these statements, they're making them in their own head as a fact. This isn't an opinion or a guess. They're making this because that is right. That all BMW drivers never use an indicator. That's a fact. They believe it. So it's helping them with their thoughts so that they can analyze their own thoughts and work out where those thoughts have come from, and then make a decision if they still agree with them, if that is actually fact, or was that just an opinion that I've taken on, or was that a guess from somebody else? So it does help them with their own thoughts. You don't have to judge them. You just have to help them with their own thoughts. Scott?
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, if they witness bad driving as well, is not getting them to think about the judgmental fact. Why do they think that person's driving like that? There could be a specific reason for it, isn't there? How do you know he hasn't had a bad phone call and he has to rush off or something like that? But it's getting them to think about those situations in that way. Yeah.
Exactly. Because they do take on opinions of other people as to what motivates another driver around them. That they will already know why that driver has cut them up. They will know why that driver is driving too close. They will know why that person didn't give way to them. They will know that, but it's not fact. One of the things I used to say to my students was, imagine yourself going into Tesco's and you're walking around Tesco's, and what you've got is, I want you to look around at all the people in Tesco's, and you've got a variety of people. You've got the little old lady that can't reach the beans on the top shelf and asks for help, and you happily help her and you get her beans down and she toddles off. And then you've got the harassed mum who's got 3 kids screaming at her for sweets, and she's doing her best to say no, but you know by the time she gets to the checkout she's going to go, oh, for God's sake, have them. Yeah. And then you've got the business person who's dashing in after work, who only wants to get a ready meal and is quite frustrated by the fact that the items of 5 items or less queue has got someone in it with 6 items, and he's tapping his foot on the floor because he just wants to get home and have his chili con carne. He's worked so bloody hard. And I say, you look around at all of these people in the supermarket, and what happens to them once they get through the checkout? And the pupils used to go, well, what do you mean? I said, well, they all get in a car. They've been and done their shopping and they get in the car. And the person that you might be upset with on the road, who might have done something wrong, might be that little old lady, might be the one that couldn't reach the beans that you were happy to help, might be that poor parent who has still got 3 kids screaming at her in the car, that you think, oh, bless, I'm glad I'm not in her shoes. Might be that bloke who's trying to dash home with his chili con carne because he knows that if he doesn't eat that in 3 seconds flat and then get on his Zoom meeting to his boss, he won't have a job tomorrow. So really, is that bad bit of driving about you?
Yeah. No, I talk about the domino effect a lot to mine.
Yeah.
Because
So
matters
it's
a
just
lot.
helping them with their own thoughts rather than everything is a fact. It might not be a fact. And once they start to think that things might not be facts, that they might be opinion, that they might be guess, it's okay for them to change their mind. They don't have to be so rigid with you then. Thank you, Di. Sorry.
No, it's a pleasure. It's good. Okay, so anybody got any questions about that type of rapport? So we've looked at, how to build it. We've looked at why it's so important. We've looked at what to do in certain situations that we don't particularly feel comfortable with. Everyone happy with that? Yeah, cool. Good. So that really brings us to the end of in-car session 3. So we're finishing up with revisiting their action plans, making sure they've got a clear plan to go away with. We're signing off their course book. So the ticket session 3 is completed. We are sorting out the next session. And then we're doing the feedback forms. Okay. And hitting that submit button, because if you don't, they're not going to get the online material. Okay. Anybody got any questions about ticket session 3? It's bloody easy, this stuff, isn't it, eh?
It's so much easier than when you first looked at that book now, isn't it? You only do a little bit at a time. It's easy.
All right. Okay.
So when do we meet again, Di?
It's about Thursday.
Fabulous.
Thursday at 10 a.m. Same link. Yes.
Can I ask you a question? Sorry. At the beginning of in-car session D, it says, they get sent the video. Okay.
They do.
We get sent it to watch as well.
Which video is it?
Prepare
for the session.
Tickets, lesson 3.
Yeah, you get to see all of those. They're in the members area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the in-car preparation. Have a look on the website, have a look at the members area. All of those prepare for each session videos are in there.
I think you're in the group as well, sir, aren't they?
Yeah, they're in the Facebook group as well, in the pin post at the top.
Thank you.
And Jeanette, are you still going to be sunning yourself on Thursday?
I will.
Oh,
I will. I'll have a lovely
Fabulous.
blue sky.
Fabulous.
I
I'm
don't-
really pleased for you.
And next week as well.
And next week
Right.
as well. Oh, this is
Yes.
not on. Mind you, I have to say, I will allow you this holiday, bearing in mind when you had your family holiday to Mexico, you ended up in a bloody hotel room with COVID for God knows how many days. So I will let you have this one and enjoy it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, everybody.
Stay
We shall
well.
see you all on Thursday.
See you
See you
Thursday.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sarah,
Yes.
I'm not sure. I got 2 of the emails that you sent out for, I think it was meant to be 4 that you get. And I got email number 3 and email number 4, but I never got email number 1 and 2.
For what?
It's the ones that Di sent out. I think it's
I think they are now in the members area as well. So
right. Okay. It's the one that you say that there's like 4 emails, and you said I got the last one today or yesterday. I only ever got email 3 and 4, so I'm not sure where they disappeared off to.
Sure, I'll have a look for you.
Yeah, let me just have a quick look. What was your email address?
It's susan.25bremner@btinternet.com.
Susan.25.
I did get the thank you one, and I got the one about the map, and then I got number 3 and number 4, but it's just I thought, well, if there's a 3 and a 4, I should have had a 1 and a 2.
Is it at Gmail or at
There's 2. I've got 2 actually. They're both me. There's a
Okay.
Gmail and there's a BT Internet.
Okay, so it was the BT Internet one that you got it to?
Normally, yeah.
Okay.
Is it the getting out there emails, Susan?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, you got marketing 3
and
which you
4.
opened, and you got 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see when the other ones would have gone.
Is that from marketing? Is that from the marketing 1 or 2?
No, these are emails that you would have got immediately after the trainer course from me about getting out there, getting it worked out there. You should have had them, Nick.
Okay, I'll have a look.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just if I got the third one, I went, this is the third one. Oh, I don't remember getting 1 and 2. So I went through and I can't find them anywhere, even in my spam. So.
I'm just trying to see if they still exist. They might not still exist, those 2. I might have to rename them 1 and 2. I don't know if 1 and 2 still exist.
Renamed to something else.
We have, yeah.
Thank you.
What date did you attend, Susan? Do you remember?
Well, I got the email saying on the 31st of Jan saying about the 14 sessions. And I got the map one on probably 18th, 17th of Jan it would have been, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
The 17th of Jan we started. It seems that long ago.
I know, it's flown by. Okay, got that one.
I'm just trying to find my notes and I'm going to tell you exactly.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Oh, and 10th of January.
No, I haven't got those other 2 emails. I don't think they exist anymore. I think I need to go into the campaign and rename those. I think they were combined at some stage, which is probably why they now still say marketing 3 and 4.
Okay, it might be that I got all the emails and I just assumed there's a 1 and a 2 because
yeah, no, absolutely. You're right to assume because it would make sense. But yeah, no, there is no 1 and 2 missing on